DJ Nation fam, what is up? What is happening? Week 12 is upon us. We're coming down the home stretch, guys. We are only a couple weeks away from playoffs. We got fantasy playoffs, I know, that are right around the corner there, with people vying in and trying to get their waiver wire pickups and use the rest of their fab before the year is up. But we're here talking DFS, and we're trying to get our bucks up and stack up that bankroll. I'm your host, Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Kevin Steele at Fantasy Wrath 13. It's the DJ Nation pod. Kev, talk to the people. How you feeling?
Doing good. A little stuffed up from a little cold, but other than that, I'm gonna let it hold me down. I have to be dead not to do the podcast. So, last week was pretty solid for me. I think I 4X'd, so that worked out. And I'm ready for this week. We're a week away from the glorious Thanksgiving slate. So excited for that. Like we said last week, we're going to have Maddie and Derek back on for that. So we'll have a 4-man pod for the special Thanksgiving breakdown. We'll do that on Tuesday night, and so that should be good.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one, and great for you guys who are loyal listeners of the podcast, and we much appreciate you guys. It's a time of thanks, and so you're going to be getting 2 podcasts from the DFS DJ Nation that week. We'll do the Thanksgiving slate first, and then we'll roll out later on in the week as we have that holiday there on our usual recording day. So that'll come later, but we will still do a main slate breakdown, Kevin and myself. So two pods in 1 week. It's going to be fun for week 13 there. But we got week 12. We got week 12 here, Kev, and we got a slate that is really we're gonna need to dive into this one and kind of talk about it, because there's not too much that looks appealing just on the early look and on the overview here. We got 11 games, I believe, on this main slate. Only one that has an over 47 point total. And that would be Tampa Bay and Atlanta. So we got a couple who are right around that mark, but then a lot of these games are going to be like under 44 points is what Vegas is telling us. So, usually we're trying to pinpoint these kind of games, quote unquote, to target. And there's not a lot that jumps out on the page at first look. So as we dive into this, you know how we do it here at the DJ Nation. And if you don't, well, welcome in. We are doing all of our stuff on DraftKings. We're looking at pricing, and we're starting out at the quarterback position. So as we get to that, we want to see kind of what's presenting itself. We got Russell Wilson at the top at 6,800. Then we got Matt Ryan at 6,700, who looks to be in a great spot against Tampa Bay, who's given up a ton of points to the quarterback position. It's pretty much target quarterbacks against them every week. And Matt Ryan, we talked on this pod before, Kev. He's good to hit that 300-yard bonus on DK. He comes back last week and is able to do that in a bounce-back spot. Only 1 touchdown, but, still getting that 19 DK points. I think he's a very safe play. I think he'll be a popular cash play this week. And so Matt Ryan's definitely in the conversation. Drew Brees is third, going against Carolina. That's a tough defense. And Drew Brees has been struggling, I guess, for what we're used to seeing from him. But all that being said, Kev, this is still Drew Brees. He's getting a home matchup here and should be in a prime spot to put up some points, as we got Christian McCaffrey on the other side, who's been doing so himself. So the Saints might be in a position where they need to throw. We talked before the podcast, Jameis Winston, he comes in at 6,200. I think he's a great tournament play. I know you want to talk about him, so I won't steal your thunder, but we've just alluded to it every week. The guy is not perfect, so he's going to turn the ball over. It's just a fact. He's going to make mistakes, but he's going to be throwing a lot. And if Atlanta can get up in this game, and we're expecting him to throw, we've talked about Jameis having a narrow distribution of targets with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin pretty much carrying people's fantasy teams and DFS teams all season long. They both find themselves in good spots once again. The Atlanta side looks good. So that should be a bonanza shootout there, as our friend of the podcast, Ben Cummins, used to always say. and Jameis Winston's fully in play. A guy I was looking at was Baker Mayfield. Kev, I'm not sure if you'll talk about him, but he's kind of, I don't want to say hitting his stride, but he's been decent. He's priced up a little bit than we're used to seeing him. So it comes in at 5,900 now, but he's going against Miami. We just saw what Josh Allen was able to do against this Miami team and hit John Brown deep twice. John Brown was the guy I know you were on last week, and this shapes up good for Odell on the other side, who's priced pretty nicely. Even a guy like Jarvis Landry. So I think Baker has enough pieces there to kind of be viable in some tournaments. And then Carson Wentz, Kev, what it comes down to for me is that Carson's going to throw the ball. He's got 79 attempts in his past 2 games. The DK points don't look all too appealing, but if we're expecting, Seattle has been putting up points in bunches in a couple of these games, and we know they do like to try and establish the run, but Philly's been a stout run team, so Russell might be forced to put the team on his back and to put up points through the air. And I just like a couple Philly pieces in the spot. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, I think both are in play. We'll talk about Miles Sanders at running back. I think he's in play. So this game is one of the games I'm trying to see if I can project this as a sneaky shootout. And with Seattle putting up around 20 points, 30 points or so, we're definitely going to be relying on Carson Wentz, and he's 5,600, so he seems like an ideal spot to target. And I won't talk about Trubisky this week. I've seen some people talking about him and going against this Giants defense that is attackable by pass, but it's just so hard to trust right now that I can't do it. This guy was benched at the end of the game against the Rams, and so he's hard to trust. But, I could talk about a guy like Nick Foles, who comes back from injury, throws for 47 times, hits 2 touchdowns to DJ Chark, and barely misses that 300-yard bonus there on DK. Now, Tennessee, this is a road matchup, and Tennessee is a good defense, and they do like to control the clock. But I think there's some ways where you could talk me into, maybe doing a Nick Foles and DJ Chark or Dede Westbrook or both, and then running back with Derrick Henry if that's how Tennessee is getting their points or something like that. So Nick Foles is a guy that I like to target in tournaments. Kev, where are you at? Where are you finding yourself early on this week at quarterback, and who would you say are your top options right now on the slate?
Well, I think this is an interesting slate to start with in terms of quarterback play. I do think starting out, I do think Carson Wentz is. I'm not sure why he's only 5,600. I know they're missing they're hurting at the wide receiver position. We'll have to see what's going to happen with players like Alshon this week. But overall, like Seattle's definitely been beatable through the air. We've seen it. We've seen a lot of shootouts, even in Seattle. Games that that come to mind are like week 1 where Cincinnati and how bad that offense has been. But that was with Andy Dalton, and where Andy Dalton threw over 400 yards on them. We saw Jameis Winston have a big week against them. There's a lot of quarterbacks that have been able to have big games against them. So really, looking at Carson Wentz at 5,600, I think that is a terrific if you want to pay down. In previous weeks, we really haven't had a lot of options to pay down at. And so it's like last week was one of those weeks where, the only ways you could have went were like Kyle Allen, who, was kind of a trap, 5,200 or was last week. But this week, you have Carson Wentz. I think you could play. Sam Darnold is in a fantastic spot at 5,800 going against the Raiders, where the secondary that's certainly beatable. Where, even Sam Darnold, the last couple of weeks has really started to, he has exercised his demons, and it does not appear that he's seeing ghosts anymore. And the last 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago, he put up 21.7. Last week, he put up 26.4. So, I think he's another way you can go to pay down a quarterback. If you're wanting to pay up, like you sort of mentioned about Jameis Winston, this game, I think you see some suppressed ownership come in on the Tampa Bay side because of how well Atlanta's defense has played the last 2 weeks. But I think there's some of that. Like Kyle Allen looked like trash before that game and does not look like the player that everybody thought he was. And so, I don't put a lot of stock into that. Yes, they were able to shut down and really bottle up the Saints. But at the same time, like that, they were coming off a bye. They had 2 weeks to prepare for them. Rival game. So to me, like I don't put as much stock as I think other people are going to, and I think people are going to overweight what they think about that. And so for me, like I think Jameis Winston is perfectly fine. If he's going to have low ownership at 6,200, where you can easily pair him with a player like Mike Evans inside the dome or Chris Godwin, where we know it's a really strict target share that goes around. Like, yeah, you can absolutely play Jameis Winston. And if I find if by comes Sunday or Saturday when I'm building lineups and I see that ownership is still suppressed, I'm going to have a lot of Jameis Winston because I just think that he can smash that price at 6,200 and easily be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. And then past that, I like guys that I want no part of. Like I'm not playing Josh Allen. The Denver defense has truly been elite this year. They really have been solid. They're I believe number 5 in pass DVOA, and they're number 1 in rush DVOA. Like I just don't think you could play Josh Allen at 64. Yes, he does have some upside with his legs, but he's not a Lamar Jackson where he's going to go out and give you 100 rushing yards. I don't think so. I'm not playing him, but the other one you could go to, I guess, would be Russell Wilson at 6,800. Philly typically has a very, they're on a pass funnel defense. So if you wanted to pay up and get a little different, I think playing Russ at 6,800 is perfectly fine. Tyler Lockett should be back and for this week after them coming off the bye, then or DK Metcalf and also Josh Gordon. So he's going to have all of his weapons to go along with Hollister. So yeah, 6,800 Russ is definitely another way you could go.
Yeah, I mean, Russ is always in play just for the upside that he has. It just goes without saying. Tom Brady burned a couple people last week. Kev, he's come out and talked about he just not maybe the age is catching up to him and he's not feeling right. Did have 47 attempts last week, so we did like that, but the game was just so ugly against Philly. Do you kind of project that same thing happening here in a home matchup against Dallas? Will he be able to find any rhythm here going against a team that really, kind of keeps wide receivers contained? So, I'm not sure I can go there, but it is Tom Brady. It is the Patriots. They could find ways to score. Is there any backdoor way where you see Tom Brady kind of paying off on the slate?
It's really tough, especially with the injuries that they have now. I mean, Mohamed Sanu sounds like he could miss actually a couple of weeks, which is a big problem. I think that, and then after that, I mean, you have, I think Philip Dorsett may miss. I mean, you really could be looking at basically James White and Julian Edelman, and then they do have N'Keal Harry now. They brought him back. So I think that, that could be a sneaky way to go. But I think it's really tough to trust Brady. I feel like this is another game where they're going to try to lean on their defense and try to run the ball against Dallas, where we know Dallas can be run upon. I mean, we saw a few weeks ago what Aaron Jones did to that defense. And so with this being at home, I just don't think you could go there. And I don't think you need to. But I mean, if you wanted to get super contrarian on a player who's going to really have no ownership, I think would be, what are your thoughts on Dak? Dak has been just a monster this year. 6K, he has put up at least 20 DraftKings points every week since week 6, and he's went against some decent matchups, I guess. I mean, if you look at Minnesota, he was still able to put up 30 DraftKings points on, but I think this is definitely their biggest test they've had all year against, true, really elite defense. But I don't know, Dak Prescott's not going to have any ownership. I think he's probably going to be sub 5% owned. And, I think that he's somebody that could get on top of this, especially if New England's able to come out and get on top early.
Yeah, I don't mind that, Kev, especially in big field tournaments. This is an MVP, solidifying game for Dak. If Dak can go into Foxborough and put a beating on this New England defense that pretty much has only had one struggle spot all season, then I could definitely find that. I mean, Zeke is not, at this point in time, he won't find his way into many, if at all, any of my rosters. Even though he's 7,500, and I just love that price for him. It's just so hard. Belichick is just gonna take him out of the game, I feel like, and force Dak to throw. So we do like that from the DFS standpoint. It's just, is he going to be able to connect with Cooper or Gallup on some of these deep plays, because it is going to be they are going to need to, kind of scheme some big deep shot plays to kind of break this open. If they're going to try and just chip and dink away, I don't think that's going to amount to anything for them. So I could definitely play Dak and get behind that, with Amari Cooper seemingly healthy and back again. So that it definitely will be a fun game to kind of keep tabs on and watch. And that is, a later slate there, but looks like there's some weather concerns there in New England. So we'll have to monitor that as well too.
Yeah. The other one I wanted to talk about, I completely forgot to mention, is Jeff Driscoll. And I mean, he's really surprised me so far. I mean, I did not expect this from him, but he's only 5,500. They're going against Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, he's faced, Chicago and Dallas the last 2 weeks, and he's put up 19 and then 27.46 DK points the last 2 weeks. He's had at least 30 rushing yards in both games. He had 37 and then 51. So, I mean, you're getting all that with him being able to use his legs as well. So, I mean, at 5,500, it's hard not to have some interest in him. I played, I think about 15% of him last week, and it really paid off, at his price tag. So, I think, if he continues to do this, I mean, we're going to see him, fly up the salary. And so right now at 5,500, if you're wanting to pay down, like, I think this is another place you can go to where I think you might see more ownership on a couple of these other guys that are kind of similar in price tag to him. But I do think, with him being able to, pick up yards on the ground, I think that kind of separates him from some of these other plays. Like, it's crazy you have to even have a conversation about Carson Wentz or Jeff Driscoll. And, but here we are in week 12. But yeah, I mean, he's been great so far. And, with the weapons they have with Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, it seems like Marvin Jones, he has much more of a connection with than Kenny Golladay. But,
yeah,
with the weapons they have there, it's hard not to like Jeff Driscoll.
No, I mean, he's definitely been showing out for you, Kev. On the other side of the ball, you have Dwayne Haskins there, who's pretty much been a train wreck to kind of start his season or his career off, I should say, as a rookie. But against the Jets, there he was able later on when the game was getting out of hand, put up a couple scores there. Found his way to 18 DK points, and this Detroit defense is one that we've targeted as well. Can you justify building some lineups with Dwayne Haskins this week, or is that getting a little bit too cute?
Yeah, I mean, that one's tough because he's just been, he's been awful so far. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Lions have been terrible against opposing quarterbacks. When they've given up the fourth most DK points on the season, they've given up 22 passing touchdowns, 3,000 passing yards, and they haven't really been able to turn the ball over. They only have 3 picks on the season, so I don't know. It's tough to play him. If you're going to, I mean, you get a really low owned stack, and probably him and Terry McLaurin, or even Darius Guice for that matter, if you wanted to go that route. But yeah, like, he's just been such a train wreck to even think about playing him. And then I think that, if you look at, I think there's a few other options that are kind of similar in price tag that, if you just wanted to do it, you could go there. I don't know. It just seems really. I mean, you could do it if you want, and we've seen guys, all types of players. We've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick last year win somebody $1 million. So anything's possible.
No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. He's going to be out there. Detroit puts up points. I think he'll find himself in a position again to be forced to throw. It's just you don't know what's going to happen on the other than in there, and he's kind of a poor man's Jameis Winston. We have yet to see, but him and Terry have a connection there, and he maybe he is able to catch his stride here against a defense that's not as formidable as the ones he's been facing. Kev, is there any final thoughts you have on quarterback before we move on to running back?
Well, let's narrow it down. Who are your top 3 plays for tournaments?
For tournaments, for me right now, I think it'll probably be Baker, maybe Wentz with some stacks, and then probably Jameis, just because of Russell's price. But I do still like Russell. But I'm probably starting off with those 3 and seeing what I can do.
Yeah. For me, it's definitely Winston, and then probably Sam Darnold, and it's tough. Probably go Driscoll, even though I think you can definitely make a case for Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or even
Mm-hmm.
Derek Carr for that matter. We didn't even talk about him going against the Jets, who are horrific. So, yeah, there's a lot of good quarterback plays this week.
Yeah, definitely some ways to start, but make sure your lineups are kind of dictating that and telling a story and not random all over the place. You're being smart with your builds if you are, depending on what quarterback you are taking. Let's move on to running back, Kev, and Christian McCaffrey is at the top again with the 10-5 price tag. Still has not changed. Going against New Orleans, who is better against the run, but as we've seen, it doesn't matter who Christian McCaffrey is going against. The dude's going to put up points. I mean, he's got 30 points pretty much in 4 straight games now. And really has just been on a tear all season, and DraftKings won't price him up, even though he's still putting up points. So I still like getting to Christian McCaffrey. But running back's interesting because we have guys in good spots, I feel like, in the mid-tier range, and we really haven't been targeting the mid-tier. I shouldn't say we. It hasn't been talked about enough, I feel like, to target the mid-tier because we've had some low-end running backs kind of dictate the slate, and then people have been able to get to McCaffrey. We don't really have that this week. I mean, people are going to ask about Darius Geis. I think he's in play. Chris Thompson comes back. He's 3,800. Sure, you could play him. He's not a lock button by any means. Pittsburgh backfield is all muddled. We don't know where to go right then. Sony Michel is 4,600. I mean, maybe he's been atrocious the past couple of weeks, but it's Belichick and anything could happen. So as long as the dude still has a pulse, I think he's always in play in tournaments. You got Tariq Cohen at 4,800, who had a pretty nice game against the Rams there, even with Montgomery being back. So 2 weeks in a row, he's had over 13 DK points. So these guys are viable. And Miles Sanders, I touched on, who I love, and Carson Wentz builds. They're viable, but they're nowhere near like lock, buck, and plug and play these guys as we've seen before. So in the mid-tier range, who I'm liking, it starts off with even Kamara and Nick Chubb, who come in at the second and third highest priced running backs. Kamara here is in a great spot. His floor is just so safe, and I think he definitely has upside in this matchup. It is, this is not a team, the Carolina, that you do want to necessarily run on, but you can attack them there. And we got James Bradbury on the other side, so that could affect Michael Thomas, open up more lanes for Kamara. So I do like getting him. Nick Chubb is in a prime spot. I mean, this guy is going to be one of my favorite tournament plays of the week. I mean, just look at his attempts, Kev. Like, he is touching the ball pretty much 20 times. So anytime I can look at a running back and get that, I love it. I know that his ownership is going to be so suppressed just because of what Kareem Hunt's been doing. And Kareem Hunt's definitely in a good spot and has pretty much been the James White for the Cleveland Browns. So he's getting the pass catching work, but we see here that Chubb is still getting touches, and against the Miami team, who we've attacked all year and pretty much said anybody's in play against them. I love getting to Nick Chubb at 8,100 when his ownership is going to be suppressed. Saquon Barkley at 7,900. It is the Bears defense. They are on the road. They're getting Ingram back, probably, it looks like. Shepard, probably, it looks like. So it's a good sign to see those guys practicing. And maybe that helps with Saquon, just to try and take the focus off of him, and so he could have it could open things up with Golden Tate being there and Slayton kind of coming into the fold. They're pretty good against the run, but they're allowing the third most catches to the running back position. So if we can get Danny Dimes to kind of get in this range that we saw against Detroit, another team that you target running backs against. If we get in this eight catch, 60, 70, 80-yard range here, and he's getting some scores. I love Saquon in tournaments at his price as well, too. Derrick Henry, he's 6,900, 69 nice. This Jacksonville defense has been getting torn up, and Marlon Mack was well on his way to a big game last week before he got injured. You're looking at what Derrick Henry's been doing. He's flirted around the 20-touch range as well, too. Kind of 15 to 20 touches is what you're getting. But the past two, I mean, look what he did against Carolina, then in KC. We know Tennessee wants to run the ball. If they can, they will. And just kind of grind it out with Derrick Henry. So he's just not priced up high enough that I think he should be avoided. And I think people should be trying to get them into their lineups. We talk about this. Is it a DraftKings play? He's not getting targets. So, forget about that. It was the same thing with Marlon Mack last week. Was he in a good spot or not? Yes, he was. Okay, play him. That's what I found with Derrick Henry this week. And then another guy I want to touch on, Kev, before I toss it to you, is Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay's at 5,200. He's going against Buffalo. It doesn't seem like a great matchup, and it probably is not, but this Denver team hasn't backed down. And Phillip Lindsay actually was having some big weeks at the beginning of the season, big week against Green Bay, big week against the Chargers. They actually had come out before last week and had said they want to utilize Phillip Lindsay more, and they did so. They used him, I think, 60% of the snaps compared to 40% for Royce Freeman. He is dealing with the questionable tag, pretty limited right now. But if he's a go and we're kind of getting that same workload from him, I do like him in tournaments because when Denver gets into the red zone, they are giving their running backs the ball, and that's why I definitely want from DFS standpoint. So he's going to be, I think that I was trying to look. So it is an early game. I think that even suppresses his ownership even more so. And if that Q tag is pretty much all week until maybe Friday, we'd like to see like a full practice get in, then I think he could be nice for tournaments. Kev, what say you at running back? Where are you looking at? Where are you going with your builds?
So for me, I think Nick Chubb is at a fantastic spot. You kind of already hit on it, but he's my favorite play of the week. And at the running back position, I think he could just go nuclear in this game against Miami. 8,100 is a terrific price. I think it gets you off of if you want to get off of McCaffrey, like I think you start with Nick Chubb. Some of the other options that are here in this range, like Alvin Kamara is certainly another way you could go. We know Carolina is absolutely horrendous against the run. And even though the Falcons didn't really, but the Falcons haven't overrun on anybody all year. So, but with Kamara, I think that this is an opportunity that he could also go off. So, I mean, I think being able to play either Kamara or Chubb are both places you could go. James Conner, he's at 8K. He's likely out. He has not practiced all week. I think that he's going to be out. So if that happens, Jalen Samuels, even though at 7,200, it's really hard to really want to play him. But man, I think he's going to have a big opportunity here against Cincinnati. There is some concern that some of the other options like a Trey Edmonds or even a Benny Snell, if he's back this week, that maybe they get more touches than and kind of limits Jalen Samuels a little bit. But Jalen Samuels at 7,200 against one of the worst defenses in the league. Cincinnati's completely given up. And to be honest with you, like that's how they're gonna have to move the ball. Like Pittsburgh's not gonna have Juju Smith-Schuster. They're not gonna have Deontay Johnson. So I mean, they're really gonna have nobody to throw the ball to in this game. So I mean, I think Jalen Samuels could end up like we saw a couple weeks ago where he got like 13 targets. Like I think that's could be in the realm of possibility. And against a terrible defense in Cincinnati at 7,200. But I don't think a ton of people are going to play him because of a lot of stuff I just said. So if you wanted to play Jalen Samuels, like I don't mind that at all at 7,200. It's a terrific matchup, and I think this is a game that he could give you. I mean, you're looking probably for 25 DK points at this price tag, but if you want to get a little bit different, I think you could go there. I like the Derrick Henry call too at 6,900. Jacksonville's has not been good against the run, like everything you mentioned there. So one of my other plays that I don't know if you talked about was David Montgomery was at 5,500. I absolutely love David Montgomery this week. I think this is a big bounce back spot for them this week. The Giants are horrific against the run. They're just a terrible defense altogether. And with obviously they just haven't been able to throw the ball or get anything going there. So for David Montgomery at 5,500, like I really like that spot for him, and I think this is a game that he could really go off.
Yeah,
You're paying a huge price tag, so I like that. I like paying that at 5,500. A couple other ones. I think Miles Sanders. If we find out Jordan Howard is out again this week, then at 5K, Miles Sanders. He's utilized as a pass catcher. I think that is a plus for him in a game that I think could be relatively high scoring. And then, past that, you already talked about Darius guys. Detroit is also horrific against the run. One I'm kind of interested in and just kind of curious about is Sony Michel. Like Sony Michel hasn't really been great this year, but at 4,600, we sort of talked about it. I mean, he has two games all year where he scored over 20 DK points. Week 5 against Washington and week 7. But this, like we kind of talked about, like this feels like a game where they're going to have to really give him a lot of opportunities and I feel like, to try to get this running game going against Dallas, where Dallas can be had on the ground. And I don't know. I mean, even if it keeps going, I mean, last week he did see 4 targets. I mean, that's not a ton, but I think if he can kind of get there, that Sony Michel at 4,600 could kind of be a sneaky play. Like, I mean, all you need is 15-20 from him, and you're thrilled. So, right. I do think that there's some intrigue there. And then another one two more. One is Bo Scarborough. I'm surprised he's not priced up more at 4,200. I mean, last week he saw 15 attempts or 14 carries, 55 yards and a touchdown, but at 4,200, he's going to be the lead back. And I mean, nobody else has really done anything. You have J.D. McKissick, who's the pass catching back, but Bo Scarborough gets a really bad Washington defense. I mean, 4,200. I mean, it's hard not to have some intrigue there with him. And then the other one is at 3,400, and that's Patrick Laird for the Miami Dolphins. He was targeted 6 times last week. He's not getting much. He's not really getting any carries. But for him, Kalen Ballage has been a fucking train wreck. Like, has just been awful. Like, what do you have? 9 carries and 9 yards last week. I think he stumbled his way into the end zone, but just hasn't been good. So you start to wonder, like, are they going to start giving some of these other running backs an opportunity? And like Patrick Laird seems like that maybe could get that opportunity. I mean, he was heavily utilized as a pass catcher, 8 targets the last 2 weeks. And at 3,400, he's not a guy that I want to play in a ton of lineups, but maybe one off here or there. Like, I don't know. Like, I think this could be a really good spot for him at 3,400. And if they decided to give him more opportunities as between the tackles, I think this could really pay off.
That's a crazy deep call, Kev. Definitely like that. Something to monitor there. With Miami, they have some injuries that they're dealing with as well too. So definitely something to keep an eye on there, and see how he's going to be used. I mean, running back, it seems pretty straightforward there. One guy we didn't talk about was Joe Mixon, Kev. So, had that ridiculous, outburst there against Baltimore where he was actually getting more run even though they were in a blowout, saw 30 attempts and then a couple targets, put up 20 DK points, but has 17 plus in 3 straight games, going against a Pittsburgh team who, like you said, Kev, is really banged up on defense. They're, Cincinnati defense can find themselves in a good spot, give some short fields. There's no Marquise Pouncey. So, if Mixon is going to still be seeing the workload that he's seeing, I think he could find himself into some solid tournament lines at only 5,900. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a terrible call, especially because, like you said, like game script is really going to might actually be in his favor this week. Like, with as many injuries and suspensions that the Steelers are facing right now, like, this is not a good team right now for the Steelers. And so, like, I don't know, like, this could be a game where Cincinnati actually wins. Like, that's not crazy to say whatsoever. They're at home. So yeah, I mean, Joe Mixon at 5,900, like, yeah, I think that's a way you could go. I don't know if the ceiling is necessarily there, but like, at 5,900, like, I don't hate that. I don't know. Yeah, so I think that's where I would come in on him. The other one would be, what about, I mean, I don't know if you mentioned this one, but Le'Veon Bell at 6,400. Like, that's especially against the Raiders at home. The problem is that we just haven't seen any sort of ceiling for Le'Veon Bell. Like last week, I mean, he gave you 17.2. He had 18 carries, 1 touchdown, but he only was targeted 2 times. So I don't know. I felt like, he's not seeing that elite usage that you're kind of accustomed to seeing. We have seen weeks where he has been targeted more, or 9 targets, week 9, 4 targets, week 10, and 2 targets last week. But at 6,400, do you have any interest in him?
Yeah, it does just feel too cheap here against the Oakland matchup. That's a good call, Kev, to bring up. I love it. I mean, I think he'll be popular. I think he'll be extremely popular as the week goes on, because of the price tag and because of how roster construction is going to dictate and getting workload in. The attempts are there, so it's just a matter of how you view the Jets, I guess, right now. Because, if you're playing Sam Darnold, I think it does make sense to play Le'Veon as well, too. You're probably thinking about paying him with a pass catcher, but Bell's probably going to get some work there in the passing game against this Oakland front. So I don't mind playing him there. It's probably one of the cheaper price tags that you're going to get him the rest of the season. So, buy now. Buy while he's low, and hope that it pays off. I could definitely see myself having, 20 max, maybe, 2 or 3 teams that have Bell on them to kind of get that upside in a bottle. This is another game, Kev, I think, where we could see, some points being scored there. So don't mind a little mini game stack from the Jets and Oakland side of things if you're getting the right pieces. So I guess Kev, basically for you, just in what our conversations have been kind of over the course of these past couple of weeks, is it kind of starting with trying to figure out teams that don't have Christian McCaffrey on them, and maybe getting to Nick Chubb and one of these other mid-price guys, or are we trying to get McCaffrey and one of these guys and just pay down everywhere else?
I think I'll probably come in around. I'll probably come in. I don't know, because this is a really tough matchup for New Orleans. Has been a really stout run defense this year, and I mean, I feel like if I'm New Orleans, I'm saying, all right, I'm going to double Christian McCaffrey every game. I'm going to have a spy on him everywhere he goes, and I'm not going to allow him to do anything, and I'm going to make Kyle Allen beat us. And like I said, as good as they've been against the run, I think with all the other options there are this week, you could easily get off of Christian McCaffrey. I still will probably end up, I don't know, 30-40% ownership of him, maybe a little bit higher once we get closer to Saturday or Sunday. But 10-5 is still a lot to pay, and he has to give you 30 plus minimum if you really want him to kind of meet expectations. So, like I said again, with Kamara, with Chubb. With some of these other plays that are out there, I don't think you have to play Christian McCaffrey this week. Like last week was a much more I felt like it was much more obvious to play him, where this week I think you can get off of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. And ownership's kind of at this point dictating that, at least projection wise on Fantasy Pros. You got Alvin Kamara coming in at 37.2% owned. This is all DraftKings ownership, by the way. Nick Chubb is right behind him with 29, then McCaffrey at 21. So love that for McCaffrey. I'll definitely be higher than 21 for sure. Bell's the 4th with 20, and then Derrick Henry rounds it out the top 5 with 20. Phillip Lindsay's actually the number 5. So I'm not sure if some touts are seeing something there or the public is, because Phillip Lindsay's kind of just been a good play for so many weeks earlier on in the season. So maybe people are still riding on that. Real quick before we move on, Kev, any love for Leonard Fournette this week? 300 against Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to go there, he just hasn't found the end zone. I think this is a game that's going to feature 2 teams that really just want to run the football. And so, yeah, if you want to play Leonard Fournette, sure. I mean, I think you could do that. I think there's a little bit better options around him. But, yeah, I mean, he's not a terrible play. Like I said, I mean, he just, with only 1 rushing touchdown, with only 1 touchdown on the season, I mean, that's kind of what's hurt him more than anything. I think they're maybe somewhat concerning, though. I guess they really kind of got their heads beat in the last 2 weeks that they played. But I mean, he had 11 and 8 attempts, the last 2 weeks. So, but he's still seeing that target share, 7, 6, and 7 targets. So as long as he's getting that, like I think he's a viable play.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's always in playing tournaments just because we know that he is the guy. So you 20 maxing, or if you're maxing out any tournament, I think you should get some exposure to him. Had a pretty decent game against Tennessee when these teams first met up, so he's definitely used to seeing this defense and playing them. Let's take it to wide receiver, Kev. And this is always it's my favorite position to talk about because there's just so much variance, and I love just getting into the plays that are a little bit less straightforward than the running back position might be, and quarterback for that matter. So we got Michael Thomas again at the top. He's 9,300. Seen his price come down, probably because of the James Bradbury matchup. James Bradbury matchup's legit. So, I think can't guard Mike is pretty unguardable. But if he could, if he keeps him in, this 20 range that we've seen from him, or just around 20, like he's not really paying off that price tag that you need from him in tournaments. So, I'd be wary of playing Michael Thomas heavy in tournaments just from that standpoint. Julio Jones at 8K, Kev, it just feels too cheap. This Tampa Bay defense, we've targeted wide receivers against them, wide receiver ones especially against them all year. And Julio Jones at 8K, you're saving $1,300 off of Michael Thomas from him, and has slate winning upside anytime that he's out there. It hasn't come to fruition thus far, with his highest point totals coming at 30. But he scored 40. He scored 50 before DK points. So, and in this matchup against Tampa Bay, as favorable as it is, like, for one, if you're playing Matt Ryan, run it with Julio. Don't get cute and run it with just Calvin Ridley. If you're playing Jameis, run it back with Julio. I just think Julio's in a smash spot here. Done pretty well in his career against them. And I'll definitely have a ton of exposure to him. Tyler Lockett, he finds himself in that weird spot. He's the third highest priced on DK. He's a little bit more favorable to play on FanDuel. It's a little bit easier with softer pricing over there. But at 7,600, if you're not, it's a good matchup against Philly. But we've seen, Russell Wilson is not married to any one player. So with having Hollister there, Metcalf, Josh Gordon, even passes going to Chris Carson, I don't know if you're going to get the share from him around these other guys who are around Lockett. It's a great play for tournaments, especially going Russell there. Or if you have a Philly stack running it back with Lockett, it makes sense. But as a one-off play, I just don't know how much, if any, I'll have of him, because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin here again at 7,300 and 7,200. Love them both. Atlanta secondary is not great. We've been targeting guys against them as well. Pretty much all season, we've seen Chris Godwin and Mike Evans break the slate, and they really haven't the past 2 weeks. So this could be the week that they bounce back in a favorable matchup. And, we were seeing 40, 39, 20 out of Mike Evans, 48, 30s from Chris Godwin. Like, if one of these guys pops, you're going to want to have them. So I'll definitely have builds with one or two or both of them in the lineup, just because they've been so good on the year. Love them for tournaments. OBJ, 7K, feels cheap going against Miami. This could be a breakout game for him. Still, it's ridiculous because he had that big play against Pittsburgh and really didn't do much else after that. He had that 42-yard bomb and almost scored, but was stopped at the 1. And so, but 10 targets and 12 targets, 22 in the past 2 weeks. That's definitely, something that you want to see there. Definitely Kareem Hunt's been eating into that workload, and Jarvis Landry has really found a rapport with Baker as of late. He's kind of banged up, so we definitely want to monitor that situation. But I don't mind playing Jarvis Landry, 3 touchdowns in 3 straight games, or a touchdown in 3 straight games, and he's 6,300. But when you're looking at the price tags of just 700 more for OBJ, I think in tournaments he has the higher ceiling. Who else was I going to talk about? Jamison Crowder's been good all year. Kev, 6,200 feels a little expensive for him, but he's just been so consistent in the numbers that he's putting up. So I definitely want to try and find a way to get to him. And definitely in talking about the Oakland Jets stacks, we'll definitely have some Jamison Crowder exposure there. You touched on Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson being banged up. So we have James Washington. Doesn't look favorable, but he's 5K and he'll be out there. And he has, a rapport of Mason Rudolph, who was his college quarterback, as we always like to say. So James Washington is definitely in play this week as well. Who else was that? Robbie Anderson caught a touchdown last week, so that was nice to see, but that was his only catch. So pretty frustrating there. But I like this spot for him against Oakland. Big playability. Love trying to get him into some tournaments. So that about does it for me, Kev. I think there were some other plays under 4K that I kind of wanted to touch on. But when you're looking at wide receiver this week, where are your starting points?
Well, definitely. Julio against Tampa Bay, 8K. It's hard not to play him. Yeah, we really wanted to play him last week, even though he was going up against James Bradbury. He wasn't terrible. He didn't find the end zone. He was 14.7, but 8 targets, 6 catches, 91 yards, didn't find the end zone. But this week, feels like a week that he can absolutely go nuclear. We know it's within his range of outcomes. I think making a decision, kind of taking a stand on either Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. I do think Mike Evans might be a little bit more of a Mike Evans week than a Chris Godwin week, but I think both of them are fantastic plays. 73, 7,200. Going down further than that, I think Allen Robinson is a fantastic play at 6,500. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to play him either, just kind of where he sits in this price range, where people maybe would rather play Calvin Ridley or guys like that, or pay up a little bit more for like an Odell or even a Godwin or a Mike Evans. But Allen Robinson at 6,500, he continues to see plenty of targets. This is a great matchup, for them this week going against the Giants. The Giants have been awful and just have allowed everybody to kind of get going. So if you can either trust whether it's Chase Daniels or Mitchell Trubisky, or if you can stomach that, I think Allen Robinson makes a ton of sense at 6,500. DJ Shark at 6,400. He continues over the last 4 weeks. He is number 2 on this entire slate in weighted opportunity rating. And then he's also has 40% of the market share of air yards as well, while seeing 28% of targets. So, it's hard. DJ Shark, it makes for a fine play in this price range at, what is he, 64?
Yeah, 64.
Yeah, 100. So I think that is, if you're not wanting to pay up at wide receiver, kind of starting at DJ Shark, you can do that. DK Metcalf is tough because he's 6,300, and then you really have to wonder how much more. With Tyler Lockett now playing in this game, and then also the emergence of Josh Gordon now, after getting another week, coming off the bye to kind of get acclimated into this offense, how much more opportunities is DK Metcalf going to get? Now, I think if this is more of a shootout game in Philadelphia, then this is where things could get interesting, and where guys like DK Metcalf, who have game-breaking ability and can hit a home run at any time, come into a little bit more play. I would love to play Cortland Sutton just because of as much opportunities he's getting. However, I just don't think I would want to do that with Tre'Davious White, who is likely going to shadow him. So, but some of the other ones I do like is Jamison Crowder at 6,200. He is seeing a heavy amount of targets. Marvin Jones at 6,100. We sort of talked about in this matchup. If you want to build a stack where it's Driscoll, Marvin Jones, I think you could run it back with Terry McLaurin, but they're just not seeing as much opportunity. And then Tyrell Williams going against at 5,900, going against the Giants. I feel like I'm naming everybody, but this range is kind of a pretty solid range of wide receivers where you can kind of get that ceiling, but also not pay as much up. If you want to pay down, I don't love the 5K range as much. There's players like Devontae Parker who finally had a kind of a really big week last week where he had targeted 10 times for 135 yards. But if you look, I mean, since Preston Williams has been out, I mean, he's seen 20 targets. He just hasn't found the end zone. And if he can find the end zone against this defense that has struggled to stop the pass, like, I mean, Devontae Parker at 5,200,
yeah,
isn't really out of the isn't really out of the question. Absolutely love the Robbie Anderson call. I like that at 4,800. He's really been awful outside of last week where he did find the end zone, but other than that, like you said, but he is somebody that has that home run hitting ability, and he's somebody that can give you 3 for 100 and a touchdown. And at 4,800, like I think you have to really like that. So I do like him. And then, if there's some other guys like Corey Davis or Chris Conley, if you're looking for savings at wide receiver, I think you could go there. But other than that, or an Anthony Miller who seems to be getting more involved in that offense. But past that, like I think that's kind of what I meant. Or, the other one I guess we didn't talk about would be N'Keal Harry. If Mohamed Sanu and Philip Dorsett end up being out, N'Keal Harry is only 3,300. They're going to have to throw the ball to somebody outside of Julian Edelman and James White. So N'Keal Harry could see a little bump in targets this week. So at 3,300, like I don't hate that either.
No, that's interesting. I was going to say, is Myers dead or is he getting run at all? He only had 2 targets.
He got jumped in the depth chart last week where N'Keal Harry was running as a wide receiver 3, and Myers I think he only played 1 or 2 snaps.
Yeah, he had 2 targets. So when if it was 1 or 2, when he was out there, he was getting looks. So they were definitely designed plays, but the end to be interesting to monitor that situation. Philip Dorsett, if he ends up playing, he's 4,100. And there's no Mohamed Sanu. We've seen Brady lean on him before earlier this season when he was out. So he could definitely, have some upside there if he's fully healthy. This Dallas D is not one that we've attacked, again, with wide receivers, but they're going to find looks and ways to get the players who are out there involved. And so at 4,100, I don't mind Dorsett there in the later game too. His ownership should be really suppressed this week. The other guy I was going to talk about, and it made me think of it when you brought up Allen Robinson, was Taylor Gabriel at, what is he, 40 something? He's 46. He's been 42. He's been Trubisky's security blanket pretty much. And you're looking at last week, he saw 14 targets, which was a season high for him, I believe, but still six target range, 7 targets, two as well. So there's definitely, the floor is non-existent, but he does have some upside here in this offense. If he's able, we saw the 3 touchdown game against Washington earlier on this season on Monday Night Football. So if he's able to if Mitchell is able to connect with him, I should say, he could definitely pay off that price tag. And I would probably get to him more so than I would get to A-Rob, as weird as that sounds, just because how pricing is this week and what I want to do with my build. So I always try and look for the cheaper wide receiver who has the same or close to the same amount of upside as their counterpart does. And then lastly, Kev, before I want to kind of get who your favorite plays are at this position, but Tim Patrick, I think you brought him up last week, and he saw 8 targets, 4 catches for 77 yards. Again, this is Buffalo. And this game is ugly. I think they have it at 70 or 37. 37 and a half over under right now. But, if he's running out there and he's good to go, he's 3K minimum on DK. I can't, fault somebody for wanting to try and get Tim Patrick into some lineups. I don't know what the upside is, I guess. But if you're building some cash teams and you're like, hey, I want to get all these studs in and I need some salary relief, Tim Patrick might be a guy that you could look to in order to do so. So let's just break it down with there's 3 wide receiver slots on DK, Kev. So if price wasn't an issue, who would be your 3 favorite wide receivers that you would feel comfortable with that would end up, let's just say you're projecting them to be in the top 5 scoring at the position this week? Who would those guys be for you?
Well, I mean, if we're not taking price into consideration.
Yeah, I guess we do have to. It's just hard to kind of dictate the lineup with your builds. But who are you? Maybe we'll say this. Maybe give me who's your favorite wide receiver over 7K? Who's your favorite kind of mid-tier wide receiver, and then who's your favorite cheap play?
I think it would probably be, oh man, it'd be a toss up between Julio and Mike Evans. But I think I'd give the edge to Julio. And then my favorite mid tier would probably be Allen Robinson or DJ Shark, but I'd probably lean towards Allen Robinson. And my favorite cheap one is Robbie Anderson.
Yeah. I think my favorite one at the bottom is Robbie Anderson there. I do like Jamison Crowder, but I take the cheaper one of the two there. I'm probably going to go back to the well with Terry McLaurin again. I had a lot of them last week. I've been playing him all season long. He would probably be the one that I try and get to because I just love his ability. So hopefully Haskins can get it together. But for tournaments, that's probably where I would lean in. And yeah, Julio at the top for me. But if it was 7K and above, I would be trying to get over the field and heavy overweight on Odell this week because it's a Miami spot and it just feels right. If he's got the growing injury, but if he's going to suit up and play, love him. If he's out, it's wheels up for Jarvis Landry, and you got to jam him into all your teams. Let's move on to tight end, Kevin, and discuss what we have here. We don't have Arizona on this slate to target, which is frustrating, but we got the next best thing, which is Tampa Bay. And now we have Austin Hooper, who's been dealing with injury, and he's questionable. He was held out of practice today, but if he somehow comes back, I know he's priced up. He's the highest price at 6,200, but in tournaments, I'd definitely be looking to get some exposure to him in a favorable matchup. Evan Ingram, he's doubtful. It looks like he's not participating either, but there's no Rhett Ellison. We've already been told that. So if he somehow is able to go 5,200 for Evan Ingram, seems a little bit too cheap. Jacob Hollister at 43, he's probably going to be a starting point for me. I mean, you're just looking at what's happened in this offense here over the past 2 weeks, and he's just been fine, not only finding the end zone, but he's been getting open on plays, and Russell Wilson's been looking for him. So at 4,300, I definitely like getting exposure to him. Ryan Griffin comes in at 4,200. He's been awesome. We thought that Chris Herndon was going to be the guy. We were all wrong. As Chris Herndon's been dealing with injuries, Ryan Griffin stepped in and pretty much taken over. Went 5 for 109 last week against Washington. Didn't do much against the Giants there, but there was a couple tight ends they were running out. But 8 targets against Miami, 4 against Jacksonville. So his catch rate's solid. And if he finds the end zone, he's paying off that price tag. Greg Olsen at 4,100 is right behind as well too. So I'm living in the 4K range at tight end this week because I love all these guys. Been definitely a security blanket for Kyle Allen, and Kyle Allen struggled mightily last week, was just the pits and really cost people a lot of money, yours truly. But in this bounce back spot here, I feel like he's going to be forced to throw once again against New Orleans in the dome there. So I like Greg Olsen. Noah Fant, I feel like it's chasing, and especially going against Buffalo, seeing those 10 targets last week against Minnesota. Minnesota's actually quietly been a terrible team against the tight end position, really allowing a lot of catches and targets to that position too. So it really shouldn't have been any surprise that Noah Fant saw work there. Dallas Goedert, again, at 3,700, he's cheap with the role that he has. It seems like him and Zach Ertz are battling weeks, and both of them can't be good together. But just the way that their offense is set up and with the injuries they've had at the wide receiver position, they can both be viable. They both went for double-digit DK points last week against New England. I think they'll have to, they'll rely on Carson Wentz will rely on both of them again this week. And so at 3,700, it really opens up a lot of your builds, and you can count on him being out there in some sets. So that's nice. I think in Njoku, he's 3,500. It looks like they're not going to reinstate him. I saw that he was eligible to come back, so that's why I wanted to bring him up. And then, the Tampa Bay tight ends, it's just, I can't trust these guys. I mean, OJ Howard, I can't trust them. I really can't. And Cameron Brate, it's just not good. So I don't know if I'll be running out these guys at all, but I think people will try and justify getting exposure to them on some Jameis builds. So Kev, what are you seeing at tight end here? And maybe, one guy I didn't talk about was, oh my God, Darren Waller here. So in Oakland against going against the Jets. So talk to me about tight end and who you like, and maybe there's somebody who I missed on that you're interested in.
Yeah, and if you can figure out a way to do it, getting up to Zach Ertz at 6K, love him as a play this week. He has started to get more involved with the offense. They're running a ton of 12 personnel. He's had 22 targets each of the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's hard not to love him, but I think you could get, if you wanted to, you could get leverage and just play Dallas Goedert at 3,700 as well. But yeah, I think Ertz at 6K is a terrific starting point. Ryan Griffin smashed last week he went from 2,900 to 4,200, targeted 5 times, 109 yards and a touchdown. We've seen this before from him. So if you wanted to play Ryan Griffin, you definitely could do that at 4,200, though he is more expensive than what you were getting from him last week. If you want to pay down at tight end, I think you start with Ben Watson. We sort of talked about with, them possibly being without a lot of players. I think you could see Tom Brady really lean on Ben Watson. He's been okay. I mean, the last couple of weeks, he had 5 targets week 9 for 28 yards, and then 4 targets last week for 52 yards. Average 17.3 yards per reception, which is, pretty solid to see. He just hasn't found the end zone, but 3,100 Ben Watson, I think, is super interesting as well. Past that, I guess if you wanted to get super cute and play a $2,600 Scott Simonson from the Giants, if they're going to be without to start.
I knew it was coming.
Well, he's going to be out there, right? And I don't know. I guess there's also Caden Smith, who they have. He did play 41 of 72 offensive snaps in the week 10 against the Jets, but Simon says that they say he's supposed to start. He played last year. I think he had 8 catches or nine receptions, 86 yards and a touchdown last year, but I don't love it. I don't think it's a ton of upside, but if you're looking to save some money at 2,600 or even a Caden Smith, if you feel like if you can find something on him or how much opportunity he may get at 2,500, I think those are 2 places you could go if you really wanted to kind of get cute. Dawson Knox at 3K as well. Quietly involved in the offense as well. Not a huge target share, 6 and 3 the last 2 weeks. Did find the end zone last week. So, I think that's kind of where I'll be. But I'll pretty much most of my ownership is going to go between Ben Watson, maybe some Vance McDonald with playing Cincinnati, and again, they're a team that's without a lot of pieces. So Vance McDonald at 3,500, and then, like I said, I'll try to figure out a way to get in some Zach Ertz.
Yeah, Vance McDonald, 7 targets in 3 straight games here, and with the injuries that are happening, we know that. Guys got hands, and he's got upside if he's finding the end zone there. Week 2 against Seattle, so in cash, I think that Vance McDonald is going to be one of the more popular plays here on the slate. And it makes sense why. So in GPPs, I'll probably be looking for pivots. Maybe Goddard's my pivot off of Vance McDonald or Hollister, as I was referring to. But if you're playing cash, it might just make sense to just lock and load Vance McDonald and not even think about it. Anything else, Kev, that you have for the people before we move on to defense?
No, I think that's it.
All right, so let's move on to defense and close it out. And so with low totals on the slate is going to bring, some ownership it's going to bring interesting ownership for the defensive from the defensive perspective, and we're seeing here, no defense is priced under 2K now on this week, so we're getting them priced more aligned and more close together. So when we're looking at defense, for me, Lions at 3,100 is probably where I'm starting against Dwayne Haskins there. They've kind of been off and on with the pressure that they've been receiving and just got blown up by Dallas at home. But the way that Haskins has been playing, I gotta believe that we can, get some turnovers here for the Lions defense, and hopefully you're able to see some of this pressure as we've seen with them getting 3 or 5 sacks in some of these games on the year. So that's what I'm hoping for. Atlanta is going to be extremely popular after the week they put on, and with Jameis on the other side turning the ball over, I think a lot of people are going to go back and chase there with Atlanta. So I'm looking for pivots off of that. So I mean, for me, it's going to be, can I talk myself into playing the Bills at 3,400, who seem too cheap against Brandon Allen there? Well, yeah, when you're looking at the sack pressure that they've been able to get, getting 10, 5, 8, and 4, no problem taking the Bills for $100 less, or paying up to get the likes of the Bears here. If we are getting the Giants as banged up as they are, this Bears defense has actually been pretty decent. And we know that they like to force turnovers. So, 5 points, 8 points, 4 points, 4 points, 6 points, 4 points, 17 at home, 9 at home against Green Bay, 6 at home against New Orleans. It's frustrating because they haven't been able to get to the quarterback, and that's really what we want to see. But they have been aggressive, and so playing in front of this home crowd, hopefully that they can. You're hoping you see that. Pittsburgh at 4K. I'm not going to talk anybody out of playing them. They are the highest price, but Cincinnati, come on. I mean, the way that Pittsburgh is getting pressures and attack, this game could get ugly. So we could see a double-digit performance here from the Pittsburgh D. Kev, what say you for defense here? And is there any, I know you like to pay down, is there anybody in the lower 2K range that you can talk yourself into playing?
Oh, for sure. The Bengals at 2,100. I mean, Pittsburgh's going to be missing all these pieces on offense. Who's actually going to be doing all the work here? So, yeah, I think Cincinnati at 2,100. Mason Rudolph could certainly be prone to turn the ball over. And, they're not going to have Juju. They're not going to have Deontay Johnson. So, I mean, they're going to be out there running James Washington, a bunch of nobodies out there. No James Conner, Yep. I mean, they're going to be missing pieces along their offensive line because of a suspension. So, allow them to get more pressure on the quarterback, and, which could cause turnovers. So 2,100 Cincinnati Bengal defense, like I'm about that life. And I think, a couple other ones, the Jets at 2,700. The Jets defense, has put together a few really solid weeks this year. They have week 10. Last week they put up 9-16 against the Giants, 16 against the Patriots, and 18 against Buffalo at 2,700. They are at home. They've been able to get pressure on the quarterback. They have 12 sacks over the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you want to play the Jets at 2,700, I do like that. And then if you wanted to pay up, I guess the Bears are certainly a way you could go at 3,700. Daniel Jones, certainly, I think he has a fumble and has a lost fumble in every single game this year. He certainly can, be turnover prone, so which could lead to a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So $3,700 Bears, and then maybe like the Bills or something like that. But I do like the Lions call as well. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I'd be. It's probably Bears if I wanted to pay up, Jets in that mid-tier range, and then Bengals.
Yeah, I'm probably going to try and find I mean, Bill. I love Bills at 3,400. I'll probably, talk myself into playing the Bears, even though it feels kind of risky, but I'll talk myself into playing them at 3,700. And then, before we wrap up, Kev, it's Patriots defense at home going against Dallas. Dak's not a quarterback that takes a lot of sacks. We have seen him, fumble. We have seen him kind of make mistakes there, throw an interception. And this defense has just been so aggressive. They are at home. It's 3,300. It's one of the lower price tags we've seen on them. And we know that they can pay off just based off of the history that we've seen. I know you've talked about Dak and getting him on lineups, but can you get to some Patriots D as well at 3,300?
I mean, it's a great price tag for him for sure, but I mean, yeah, if you had enough money and you want to play them, sure. I don't know. Like, I just think there's a little bit better plays that are a little bit cheaper than. Like I said, I think the Lions, like the one you mentioned with them, I think that's the better play. I think even the Saints, who are 3,300, the same price. Kyle Allen has been a turnover machine lately. And so, they are at home as well with tough place to play. So, $3,300 Saints is also pretty enticing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely agree with you there, Kev. Yeah, so that's good. That's it. That's the slate in a nutshell. That's week 12. It's going to be a fun one, especially for tournaments. As I've heard a lot of touts in the industry already talk about how rough of a week it is. So definitely get your tournament exposure there. Be smart with your core builds. Definitely try and just talk yourself into some scenarios that can pay off with these low total games here. A lot of ownership is going to be on the higher, on the more interesting games. So if you like, one-off pieces in these other games that aren't going to have much, if any at all, exposure, then definitely find a way to get some of that going. But it's week 12 and it's that time. We're at the end of the pod and we are going to build our Millie Maker team here back up to $20. Millie to first. We got 76,000 entrants in it. And Kevin and I are going to build our Millie Maker DK team right about now. And Kevin, I think I dictated last week how we would do our build. So it's going to be on you here to kind of start it off and let us know what we're doing here with our build for the DGen Nation. We've had some success over this year. The past couple of weeks, we've been on a roll. I think last week, I'm going to pull it up while you're thinking about the play, but it was just a rough week all around. We did have Kyle Allen, but we played Ryan Griffin. We played Deebo Samuel, even with the news of Sanders coming back. Had Jets D, that was fine. Brian Hill kind of hurt us. We did play Julio that week too. That hurt us. And then we had McCaffrey, but we cashed, and that's what we're going for. When we're not hitting the Millie, we just want to make sure we're seeing green. So, Kev, talk to us this week. What we doing?
Let's just start this one off with Nick Chubb.
Love it. We both like him, so it makes a lot of sense to plug in Nick Chubb and then see what we can do. And a player that we both like, and we'd both be kicking ourselves if he went off and we didn't have him. Let's see what we can do with Julio as well, too. Talk to me, Kev. Where we at?
Oh, I thought you heard me. I said let's go with Sam Darnold, 5,800.
Oh, my bad. No, I didn't hear you. But love that because we can run that back with Robbie Anderson. So I'm going to put him in now at 4,800. So right now we got Sam Darnold, Nick Chubb, Julio Jones, and Robbie Anderson for about 4,600 left per player. Still got a running back spot, wide receiver, tight end, flex, and defense open.
All right. Let's see. Oh, it's going to be tough. You know what? I'm going to go David Montgomery, 5,500.
Okay. So we got Nick Chubb and David Montgomery as our running backs there. What can we do here with the game? We didn't talk about Ted Ginn, I don't think. He's 4K. I'll play around with that. I don't mind him in the matchup. I'm going to put Dallas Goedert in at 3,700, though. Save us some salary. The Carolina New Orleans game, I think, is interesting. That's why I looked up Ted Ginn.
Let's see. Tell you what, so we got David Montgomery. I'm gonna go Bears defense at 3,700.
Okay, so we got Bears there. So we got 5,200 left per player. So gonna be hard to get one of our Tampa Bay guys into this lineup. Let's see what we got here at wide receiver. Love running backs that we love.
You know what we could do? So if you want to play either Godwin or Evans, we could go double tight end, and 3,100 leaves us enough till we could play Ben Watson at 3,100.
Don't think I like playing double tight end when it's like Kittle and Ertz or something like that, and we can get some exposure. What about trying to get Bell in here in the flex and then 4K at wide receiver? We could even go cheaper at tight end too to make something work.
Yeah. Let me see. What
For most we thought about a build all year, Kev. I love it.
Or I guess if we wanted to, so if we went down to that, so we could drop down from the Bears defense and not play Bears and play. I could go to the Broncos because I don't mind that against Buffalo.
Uh-huh.
And then if we could either keep Goddard or we could go down to Watson, and that would leave you 5K in the flex.
So play Broncos and who at wide receiver?
Well, we could, and that's with keeping Mike Evans. I'm sorry if you wanted to do that. Or if you don't want to play my Buck wide receiver, if you don't want to do that, I guess really then if we wanted to, if you still wanted to go the Lev Bell route, I just don't know if that's pretty contrary to play 3 Jets.
No, it definitely. I mean, but you're playing Sam Darnold, so it's like, you know,
if we're gonna do that, so then I would feel like that, like if we're gonna, if all these 3 are gonna get there, I almost feel like this would be a spot we'd want to run it back, and I feel like if we did, then I would want to play like Tyrell Williams.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm fine with this. I do like getting I mean, I do think that a Tampa Bay receiver once again will be top. So I do like getting both of them and Julio. So I'm fine with we take Ben Watson and then I'll play Miles Sanders in the flex at 5K
Okay, let's do that.
to get that exposure. So right now, so we got the team. It's Sam Darnold, Nick Chubb, David Montgomery, Julio Jones, Robbie Anderson, Mike Evans, Ben Watson, Miles Sanders, and the Broncos D. No dollars left remaining. We used the full salary cap there for the DFS Degen Nation Week 12 Millie Maker build. And that's going to put a stamp on the Week 12 edition of the DFS Degen Nation podcast. We didn't even do any plugs at the beginning, so we got to plug what we got going on. We got our free Slack chat that's been lit the entire year. People are getting in there. We're doing free draft, or not free. We're doing a $5 entry DraftKings contest for all those who are in the Slack chat. Kev's been sending out those links the past couple of weeks, and we've been having a lot of fun in there, especially those who've been taking my money because I did not set my lineup, had it reserved, forgot about it, and that was just money, just gone. Just go ahead and take it. So come in and play on DraftKings because Ryan is giving away free money. It's nice, but no, we appreciate everybody who's been in there, and we definitely want to do something to get back. So listener week is happening. DM the DJ Nation Pod, DM Kev at Fantasy Route 13 to get all the details about how you can get into our free Slack chat and how you can get involved with that. Guys, thefantasyauthority.com still putting out solid content here from our writers from a DFS standpoint. So make sure you guys are going to thefantasyauthority.com on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sunday before a lock to see all the content that we have going on there. Definitely a lot of fun that we are having putting out that content and for you guys, and we just want you guys to be taking that in and appreciating it. So make sure you're going over there, catching that content, and then as always, like, review, rate the pod. Shout out to StreamYard. We've been doing our live show stream there, and appreciate everybody for sharing the love and retweeting and liking them and giving us feedback on them. It's been a fun year being on StreamYard to be able to put something out on YouTube and Periscope in a video form for you guys, and then also on iTunes, Stitcher for the pod when that gets released. So we appreciate it, and we just want to make sure we're giving you the Degen Nation pod in as many ways as we can, and we'll continue to do so all year long. But that is going to do it for the Week 12 edition of the podcast. Kev, any final words for the people?
No, I was just going to say, actually, you brought up the Listener League, and I forgot about that. Actually, you did get in on that. There was the Tiers one you didn't get in.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The Listener League, you finished third. I finished fifth.
That's right.
Like I was in the money for a lot of the day, then I ended up falling down a little bit. So, say shout out to Girardi. He took it down with his 160, and then another Low Star. I think that's Trey. I think it might be Trey, but 156.88 was his score. Then you had 150, and I had 140.36. So it's pretty solid. Yeah,
I love it.
I was tilting my face off because I had a ton of Marlon Mack, and he was crushing. And,
oh yeah. Well, anytime I can beat Kev, I love it. So.
Yep. So anyway. We'll have that again this week, so just reach out to me, and I'll get you in there. And then we'll probably do another special one for the Thanksgiving slate, so that should be a lot of fun too.
Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. So, and like we said, 2 episodes next week for the Thanksgiving slate and the main slate. So it's the week of thanks, and DFA is giving back. The DJ Nation's giving back for you guys. So that being said, good luck to all you guys in week 12, and we'll see you back here week 13 for Kevin Steele at Fantasy Route 13 signing off. Ryan Williams, Ryan Alexander _W. It's the DJ Nation pod. Your family. We out, DJ Nation. Peace.